Barb Burton is a retired educator who, while teaching full-time, established a guiding and outfitting company called Outward Bound with her husband. Wilderness Bound, sorry, not Outward Bound, with her husband George Drought. Both George and Barb made major contributions to the Wilderness Canoe Association. I can recall, in the age of Skype, mind you, Barb commuting from Huntsville to Toronto for board meetings. Since George's unfortunate death from ALS, Barb has had a lot more free time and has filled it to the brim by volunteering for every sort of community activity, sports activity that you can think of in the Huntsville area. So tonight Barb's going to share her experience of paddling the North Shore of Superior and perhaps highlight a few different features from the standard trip report.
Thank you very much, Bill. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So Alex asked me to be a fill-in speaker a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it might be kind of fun, rather than an Arctic river, to highlight a little bit of really neat paddling in northwestern Ontario. So we headed up from Huntsville and beautiful, did a lot of little stopping and stuff on the way, but headed up, and we're going to first of all paddle this section of the North Shore of Superior, which I think a lot of people have done. And on the way, of course, you have to stop at Agawa Rock and visit the pictographs there, and a chance to see Mishipishu, the water spirit that we're going to give our tobacco offering to before we set out on Superior. So I had paddled this by canoe and kayak before, but I've never done a voyageur canoe trip. And so I was really excited when Bob Fisher from, a lot of these people, a lot of you will know, are WCA members, but Bob Fisher every couple of years rents a 35-foot voyageur or Montreal canoe from David Wells of Naturally Superior in Michipicoten, and one of their guides. And we were really fortunate to have David himself as our guide along on the trip this year. So here we are at Naturally Superior getting organized, and we're going to head from Michipicoten up around to the top end of Puckasaw National Park, put in at Hattie Cove, and we're going to work our way down the coast. I'll be talking a little bit about Otter Island and Richardson Island, and I'll be mentioning Point Issaquah, and of course there's the Puckasaw River coming down here, and the Dog, or the University River here, and back to Naturally Superior. So here we are. David is giving us some tobacco to offer to Mishipishu, so that hopefully we would have a safe journey. And this is Bob Fisher, another WCA member, and he's the one that's organized this. He had all the equipment. Well, some of us had brought equipment too, but anyway, he really enjoys it, and I was glad he did. I was amazed because, as you know, Superior can blow up, and of course on the first day that we were heading out there was a fair bit of wind and wave. We're still fairly sheltered here, but this is an amazing way to travel. I mean, we're not really well packed. This is the first day that we've headed out, but you can get so much gear in these things, and they are stable, and you're in the waves and you're not worried, and anyway, it's great. But you'll recognize Elsie and Ann Bradley. And anyway, number of, I think, the fees and up there. And anyway, so there is our Gubanai for the day. So the Gubanai is the steersman of the voyageur canoe. He's wearing the sash of the voyageur, and we were quite glad that he was doing it the first day. But we, anyone that wanted to, had a chance to do it in various days afterwards, which was a neat experience. And it's also an experience learning how to land it and the proper ins and outs of it, but you get good at it as you get going. Lovely, lovely coves, landing spots for the most part that we could find. We decided to wait out the wind for a little while at Willow River. I think it's Willow River. And so while we were waiting, some of us went for a little hike. I love hiking on canoe trips, no matter whether I'm in the Arctic or where I am. So it was nice to be able to hike in and actually get on the coastal trail. And I think for some of you that have done the coastal trail in years past, they have built some pretty amazing new suspension bridges along there. So this was kind of neat to go through. And of course, when you can carry all that gear, you can have a pretty comfortable kitchen. Elsie Carlock had planned all the meals, and I think Ann Bradley helped out too, and then we all had a rotation through cooking and cleaning up, and so we had some delicious meals and comfy campsites. Lots of firewood along most of the coves, and Frank Knappen is another WCA member collecting firewood there, and they also came in handy as rollers when we were trying to bring the boat on shore sometimes. I'm actually shivering up here. Anyway, lovely, comfortable campsites, lots of stories to be told, and like I say, when you've got people like David and lots of experience to share around, it was lovely. Okay, there we are, sorry. Now, Bob's theory of traveling in June, and I would say that this was in June, the second or third week of June, and I guess his theory is that there's, I've got a vest, I'm good, thanks. His theory of June is that there's very few people and you don't have to worry about the bugs. Well, he was right for 50% of that. And you can see Diane Connors there is waving away the bugs as you're looking at the map as we're going. Loading up is quite a treat. And there's usually a couple people with some very cold feet as we're getting set off in the morning. Now, Vicki was the first one to try the Gubernai position and did a really good job. You really have to focus on just drawing or prying and not let the boat start to overcorrect, but it really is a fun experience. Nice high seating position. We took a bio break every couple of hours, had a chance to get out and stretch, and there was always interesting things to see and wander around when we stopped. And Sandy's down in a neat little cave. So Sandy's an experienced kayaker who is a guide in training for Naturally Superior, and she came along. So we really only ran into one solo paddler who I think was also a guide that we met earlier on, and then at the end, near the end, we met 3 American guys that were heading out. But it's a wonderful way to paddle because you can be injured and not have to paddle. You can paddle as hard as you want. I mean, the only poor guy that really has to work continuously, well, I guess we're on a rest break here, but Frank was up in our avant position setting the pace. And you kind of notice if they stop paddling, but otherwise it's a great way to go. Typical of most of the coves that we were stopping in, sand beaches and cobble beaches. So I think we're stopped here. Oh no, we're carrying on. And lovely to be able to get in close to the coastline and in between the rock highlands. So again, you've got your avant setting the pace, you've got your milieu and all your stuff, and a little bit more of the milieu, the middle average paddler, and your Gubernai steersman in the back. String of geese. Now this was kind of exciting. Because we were going along and just happened to be looking, and we discovered something that I don't think David, from the sounds of it, maybe he was kidding us, but had said he'd never seen before, were 2 rock paintings. So I think they were moose-like creatures up here, but they were pictographs that he said that he had never seen before. So we felt like we discovered something. And this was just before the North Swallow River. So this is the North Swallow River campsite, and typical of our campsites that we'd normally be camping sort of at the top of the beach, and then the site was often up in the woods. And this is a really lovely campsite. I mean, other than lots of neat sort of chit chat and great meals and stuff, but okay, gorgeous pink reflection from the sunset. We often didn't get the actual sunset because we'd be in the cove and the sun would be setting on the other side of a headland, but some really beautiful evenings. But this site has a path across to Newman's Bay on the other side. So Diane's there. I guess there is an animal study that's been going on for quite a long time, so I don't know really whether this motion-sensitive camera is still working or not. Probably has some very funny pictures of paddlers, I'm sure. But So this was the first in Newman's Bay, the first of our Puckasaw pits that we saw. And these are various shapes and sizes along Superior, and there's been studies done on them a lot in the 50s through the 70s, and they've dated them varying from 1080 and newer. And in the 50s and 70s, the archaeologists were talking about them probably as having a spiritual meaning, that the prepubescent adolescents might be going there for vision quests, that sort of thing. More recent suggestions in articles that practical use versus spiritual, that they were probably shelters and caches. Who knows? And I can't get in the middle of that argument. But anyway, you can't really tell it very well here. But there is an actual man-made depression here in Newman's Bay, and this is the trapper cabin of Newman. So we'd planned to have two rest days, and this just conveniently was a windbound day anyway. And so a group of us headed off, and we did a morning hike up around the headland. And I called this my pants portage, because by the end of it, I was duct taped up in my paddling pants. But this is a tombolo, which, if you can see, here's Newman's Bay over here. So there's a path across from the campsite, and there's a big headland here. And originally, I guess this would have been an island that's filled in sort of an isthmus in the side and called a tombolo. But it was a lovely campsite. So we are hiking around through and then back across the path. But lots of climbing and sliding down and beautiful views. So it's very, very lovely country. And I guess the trade-off for the bugs for us was wonderful wildflowers. So anyone that knows me knows that's my thing. But the pink lady slipper orchids were just phenomenal. And I don't think I've ever seen so many out on, well, certainly not on a trip. But they were gorgeous amongst the lichen. Beautiful rocks. And I guess what fascinates me is there's a lot of plants along Superior that grow in the Arctic. And so this primula is a very common, in fact, somebody had it in one of their presentations this morning, is an common Arctic plant. And I love saying this. This is a deteriorated diabase dike. So the diabase, or the basalt, and basalt in one of their talks had the diagram of that. But so the basalt has eroded out and then left this long cleft into the cleft, and probably a little bit of quartzite here coming down the. Now this is another common Arctic plant. This is butterwort, and it's just starting to come into bloom, but it's an insectivore, so it will have sort of sticky leaves in here and will trap insects. And here we are over at Newman's Bay, and you can see the beautiful clear water, and I think that's where I might have taken the seat out of my favorite old paddling pants. Now, we did have somebody go for a swim, but that water was pretty cold. I remember a couple of the nights David was taking hot rocks into his sleeping bag at night. We had some cool weather, and we had some really hot weather. But I chose to bathe in the streams when they were coming in. But boy, if you cleaned up, the bugs really went for you. So in the afternoon, some of us went up. You had to sort of cross the Swallow River, and then you could head up the coastal trail, heading up. It starts there and heads up north. And so we had a lovely hike. I think Bob and David and Frank Knappen and I up. And again, just gorgeous wildflowers. So this is the yellow clintonia, or bead lily, and the dogwood, or bunchberry. You can see the strength of the wind. This is an inland lake on the trail, and the wind was just howling up there. But it really was gorgeous. And this beaver had built quite an amazing dam at the end of the lake. And again, I have to put this on, seeing as they were in the title. But it was amazing to see just huge groups of them around. Frank was quite impressed by this. It was almost a bonsai jack pine at the top of the one area that we were crossing. You could just see that it had been wind scoured for years up there. So Frank's a forester. But this is typical of what we were seeing, were these big patches of the lady slippers. And Sandy was a yoga instructor, so we had some lovely yoga on the beach periodically. Again, a very social, I mean, it's not your solo experience, obviously, but it's a wonderful social way to travel, and a nice way, you know, if you had somebody you wanted to get out there to see it that maybe wasn't, you know, comfortable with the possibility of the waves and stuff, it's such a comfortable, safe way to go. Cascade Falls is beautiful and unique in that it's one of the falls that comes right into the lake as opposed to into a river further up from the lake. Somebody's built a sweat lodge here at some point out of the driftwood. So we've now crossed over to Otter Island, and this is one of the old fishery buildings. Pretty rough shape and a lot of junk hanging out around. And again, one of the you know, the park sites, but is the original lighthouse keeper's house. And then you can climb up and over to the other side and see the new house, which is also abandoned, and the actual lighthouse. So you can go up into the old house and look down. So this is the south end of Otter Island, and a very unique site, and something that I guess they haven't published much about yet. We were trying to find out information about it, or Bob has been. Head back in, and this is, we nicknamed it the Fortress site, but it's a huge complex of rectangular stone walls. And again, you know, whether we're talking a village, whether we're talking spiritual use, who knows? But it really was very impressive to see. And I think it's something that the archaeologists are not wanting people to be in and exploring around yet until they really get in and look at it. I may be wrong, I don't know, but there certainly hasn't been a lot published about it. But these are a pretty big site, pretty big walls. And again, you've got markers at a lot of these various pit sites. You can tell where they have studied and put the reference marks down. Sandy's at one of the pits on the shore. She was quite a firm believer in the spiritual basis to them. Now this is Richardson Island, so an island just a little bit south of there. And this is raised wall pits, so they've actually built the walls up as well as gone down. And there's 3 of them there of a very significant size. Anyone that knows me knows that I love to come home with rocks. I think I just took the picture of those. But you can see Sandy and, no, actually it might be David and 2 others of the pits there. And we've moved on and camped near Puckasaw Depot. And so our campsite is back over here, and you walk up and sort of wade across. And Puckasaw Depot was a, well, you can see 1917 to 1930, was a pulp logging depot. And they've got quite a nice interpretive site there, but you can see, as somebody talked about it in places, that it is returning to the land gradually. Very interesting to go around. If you're sort of kicking around, you can find bits of old lanterns and that sort of thing, iron fittings on the ground. And David was telling us about an old lady that he knew in Wawa, and I don't know if she's still alive or not, but that who grew up here as a little girl. Wonderful swirling little fog banks that would come in and out of the islands, both when we were paddling and when we were camped. So again, that wonderful feeling of just relaxing and being there with the vision. I haven't bought a lot of new camping gear in forever, and I'm still quite happy with my, ceramic filter pump. But I was very impressed with this gravity feed system that Bob had, that for a large group you poured water in the top and it worked its way down through the filter, and to clean it you just reversed it, and it was kind of neat. Breakfast on the beach. I think Mishapishu was happy with us. We certainly enjoyed his or her territory. This was a very special day for me. I gubernayed on the day that we went to the Puckasaw River and paddled up to the base of it. And my husband, George Trout, a number of years ago, wrote a guidebook for it, and he used to take clients. I was teaching at the time usually, but he used to take clients down the Pakasaw River regularly. So I was able to, just on my own, leave a little bit of ash there. Anyway, you can see it's a very powerful way to paddle as well. This is Wheat Bin Beach, I think, another one of our breaks. You can tell that Bob's been black fly decorated here. These are all bites on his legs. So we had, I mean, obviously they're not bothering us here, but we had some times where they were absolutely terrible. A little bit of otter action. And this is one of these diabase or basalt dikes that's moving all the way out and along the water. A real, I guess, geologist, wonderful place to be and study. Another one of our little leg stretch stops. So this is that butterwort that I talked about that's now in flower, and you can see that it's got insects trapped in the leaves that it would absorb the nutrients from. And sundew, which is, attracts insects to the sticky fibers. These two were fun to watch. It was like the lead one would turn and say, "Come, follow, follow," and they'd carry on. A little bit of quartzite headed out in the water. So Point Issaquah, there's a series of headlands that are quite steep and no real relief, so you have to make sure that you've stopped, and I think that's what we were doing the last spot, actually, was stopping, waiting for the wind to die, and make sure you've got clear passage around these headlands, because you don't want to get trapped there with any way out. But again, Mitsubishi was very good to us. We got around and spotted a snowbank that was left, so we had ice with our drinks that night. Bald eagle watching us. Something nice that sometimes, I know a lot of people like solo trips. I enjoy solitude, but I also enjoy, in this format, it can be a really, really nice social experience too, to share it together. This Dollastone, we're now at the bay of the Dog River, and this Dollastone formation on the side of the bay was really interesting. So we paddled up the Dog River and did a little bit of a free-floating mooring, and you can tell, I guess this was a little bit of a protest to it being renamed the University River at one point, so I think it's been reverted to the dog. This is a spectacular hike up, and you can see that there's been a number of blowdowns over the last few years. I remember the one year when George was doing the Pakasaw that they actually had a park ranger had wanted to come down with them, and he brought the chainsaw. So that was kind of neat. So this is going up the Dog River, and we're headed up to Denison Falls. But once you go through the woods and sort of a flat water section, it gets more and more rapidy as you're going along. Beautiful, rock formations, scoured rock as you're going along. A little bit of a symbol that somebody didn't get out soon enough. But this is the first of the major ledges, and some of the group decided to stay back over here and had a lovely, just relaxing afternoon here. And we headed across. There's some ropes that start up, and it's, I think, some of the groups replace these on a regular basis. I think David. Okay. So here we are, headed up towards the top, and it just keeps on going, and you can see that it works its way down. From that one, you can actually see where we were at the top here, and the other group was down at the bottom, so it really is a lovely hike. Lots of formations. This was a little bird's nest we found on the way out, and my birding friends tell me it's American redstart nest. Some of them once stayed back and fished. We had a lovely fish feast that night. A little bit of a sprinkle, so the guys all got into their Tarpology 101, and this was our celebration, our last night, our celebration of the summer solstice, and so Frank was in charge of heating up the rocks, and we were going to carry in, he had created our sweat lodge, and sprinkling the water on the rocks on the cedar there, and poof, it's back to being John's sill tarp. Now, this was Anne Bradley's research in Sweden. I guess they celebrate the solstice with pickled herring and lingonberry jelly and vodka. And we are sporting our latest in bug cosmetics here. Lovely fish and dehydrated salad. Now, these boots have been on many Arctic rivers, but they made me the designated water girl for the trip. And also, I guess they do strawberries and chocolate in Sweden. And we had our little party piece. This was somebody's rope trick. And we're at McCoy Harbor, another tombola, and our last lunch at Conglomerate Rock. And I'm just going to this is really quick, Alex, so don't panic here. So we were going to head up another trip in July with our neighbors. We were going to head up, do some exploring, hiking at Sleeping Giant Provincial Park, which is fantastic, hiked up the Head and Silver Islet. And we were going to do a little bit of a fly-in and explore in Wabakimi. We got to Sibley, the bugs were horrendous, so we thought rather than going further north, we'd go west into Quetico, which is just an amazing park. You can compare it in size over here to Algonquin. It really is a lovely park. And we were fortunate. Here's Atikokan. Bill, my neighbor Bill Lawson, had taught high school in Atikokan for quite a while. And so this was his Algonquin. He'd taken his outer club in there for years. So, and it was our plan B. He'd wanted to go there all along, I think. But anyway, so we did a wonderful loop through a series of lower lakes here. It's kind of neat because you go through Indian land in here, native land, and Lac La Croix Ranger Station. There's another ranger station up here. We were able to run on and off, run and line and drag and carry some of the rivers, the portages. He'd never been able to do whitewater, obviously, with the school kids, so it was nice. He'd wanted to do this Maligne River, so we were able to run parts of it. We had to do some dragging and lining and stuff, not difficult at all up here. We had, amazingly, wind behind us and wind behind us all the way back, but we had 32 degrees heat. We had intense thunderstorms, thunder and lightning storms a couple of nights. There was somebody killed in the park, actually, with a tree in the wind. We had very high water. We had some mucky porches. I am stopping, Alex. Fabulous in here, fabulous rock paintings. So this just gives you an idea. They don't believe in marking the sites or the portages, but they're easy enough to find. And it really is, it's an Algonquin without the people in the park. And a little bit of chance to run some whitewater, both solo and tandem. Logging remains. We had wolves and wonderful nature. But this is the fantastic spot: is finding the rock paintings, and you can find out. This is a lovely moose. You can find out from the park some of the locations of them, and they are quite lovely. And I just want to make a real highlight. If anyone doesn't have this stuff in their first aid kit, it is wonderful, wonderful stuff. It's a gel that you peel off and can put on burns. It's soothing, it stops friction, and you know where this is leading. I think of Raffin and his slot machine, his risk management. We had a big pot of boiling tea put on the side of a fire. Somebody said, can you put the lid on it? It's one of those lids you had to press on to get to stay. I pressed. Rock wasn't stable. I was wearing mesh running shoes. Anyway, the big problem was we had a 1,200-meter portage the next day, and I thought, oh my God, what are we going to do? I was amazed. With this on and gauze and wrapped, and in my hiking boot, I was fine. That was the foot at the end of the portage. I mean, the white around there is just from being, the wet around there, but it was amazing. We had 2 days left. I was able to do it and out and get into Atikokan and get some more supplies. And we were headed on after that. We went up to White Otter Castle and White Otter Lake, another lovely area to explore. And I did it.